When I heard the sound of a chainsaw roaring outside my window that morning, I figured the city crew had finally come to trim the power lines. But when I looked out, it was not the city. It was Karen, our 50-something HOA officer, dressed in her pastel pink suit like she was heading to a garden tea party, standing right on my property with a landscaper and a chainsaw. She was pointing at my oak trees like she was directing a demolition crew. By the time I got outside, 2 of my trees were already gone. That was the moment I knew this was not going to be another petty HOA squabble about mailbox colors or fence height. This was about to get serious. Those oak trees had been standing there long before my house was even built. When I bought the place, the realtor told me they were part of an old federal conservation border, a protected line separating residential land from government property. It sounded kind of cool at the time, like owning a small piece of history. I never touched them. They were healthy, they provided shade, and they made my backyard feel alive. But Karen? She never saw beauty. She saw violations. She once said to me, "Uniformity keeps the community beautiful," which, in HOA language, means, if I do not like it, it does not belong here. First, she complained that the leaves from my trees were falling onto the sidewalk. Then she said the roots were too close to the street. After that, she claimed they blocked visibility for drivers, even though the trees were 20 feet from the curb. So, I did the logical thing. I hired a certified arborist to inspect them. He confirmed the trees were perfectly healthy, structurally safe, and absolutely no danger to anyone. I even submitted his report to the HOA. I thought that would end it. It did not. 2 weeks later, I got another letter in my mailbox, stamped in red, bold letters, "Final notice, non-compliant vegetation." I ignored it, because I knew I was in the right. The trees were legal, safe, and verified by a professional. But Karen does not like being ignored. So that morning, when I heard the chainsaw again, I bolted outside yelling, "What the hell are you doing?" Karen turned to me, calm as a Sunday school teacher, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks. We are just enforcing a safety mandate. These trees are classified as community hazard structures." Community hazard? I blinked at her, trying to process the insanity. "Karen, this is my property. You cannot just..." Before I could finish, I saw the 3rd tree start to lean. The landscaper hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but Karen gave him a sharp nod, and he sliced through the trunk. That deep, cracking sound of a century-old oak splitting in half hit me like a punch to the gut. My stomach twisted as the tree crashed down, shaking the ground beneath my feet. When the dust settled, Karen brushed her hands off like she had just finished a household chore. "There, much better. You will receive an invoice for tree removal and property compliance adjustment." "Invoice?" I repeated, almost laughing. "You destroy my trees and now you want me to pay for it?" Her fake smile hardened. "You should have followed protocol, Mr. Brooks. We gave you plenty of notice." I stared at her, then at the stumps, 3 dark, raw circles where shade and life used to be. Something inside me snapped. "This is not over, Karen. Not even close."
She gave a little smirk, the kind that said she thought she had already won, then turned and walked off. I stood there for nearly an hour, just staring at the stumps. My neighbors peeked from behind their blinds, but no one came out. Nobody ever does when Karen is involved.
Finally, I went back inside, grabbed my laptop, and started digging through every document I had. HOA bylaws, property plats, purchase deeds, survey maps, anything that might tell me where my property truly ended. That is when I saw it. On one of the older county maps, printed in faded ink, was a line drawn right behind my trees. Next to it, small but clear, were the words, "Federal Reserve Land, Department of Environmental Management." I froze. Wait. Those trees were not entirely on my land. They were on federal land. My mind started racing. If Karen had those trees cut without authorization, I needed proof. So I drove to the county recorder's office first thing the next morning. The clerk, an older guy named Lewis, who looked like he had been there since the place opened, helped me pull up the latest survey data. He compared it with GPS overlays, squinting at the screen for a solid minute before saying, "Well, you are not going to believe this. But yeah, the boundary line runs right through those trees. They technically fall under federal jurisdiction. I leaned in. You are sure about that? He nodded. Oh, I am sure. And if someone cut them down without a federal permit, that is a big deal. We are talking fines, investigations, maybe even criminal charges. For a second, I just sat there, stunned. Then I felt a grin spread across my face. Karen had no idea what she had just done. She wanted to send me an invoice? She was about to get something much worse. But before I did anything, I needed solid evidence, photos, timestamps, witnesses. So the next morning, I grabbed my camera and went outside to document the damage. That is when I saw it. Yellow tape. Not the HOA's cheap plastic kind. Real, official federal property investigation tape stretched across the tree line. And parked across the street was a black SUV, engine still running, with 2 people inside wearing government windbreakers. I stopped in my tracks, staring at the scene. Karen thought she was enforcing the rules. She had no idea she just broke a federal law. A man in a dark jacket stepped out of the black SUV and flashed a badge. His tone was calm but serious. Mr. Brooks, we need to talk about the trees that were removed yesterday. The next morning, the whole neighborhood felt off. No kids on bikes, no dogs barking, just this weird, heavy quiet, like everyone was hiding behind their curtains. Across the street, that same black SUV sat parked, engine running, windows tinted. The man from yesterday got out again. Mid-40s, plain black jacket, short haircut, clean-shaven, the kind of guy who looked like he could stare through you without even trying. He walked up my driveway slow, scanning the ground like it was a crime scene. Mr. Brooks? He said. I nodded, my pulse starting to pick up. Yeah, that's me. He extended a hand. Special Agent Whitaker, Department of Environmental Protection. Even his voice carried weight. Calm, direct, but sharp enough to cut. The kind of voice that made you think before you spoke. He opened a folder, flipping through a few documents. We received a report about unauthorized tree removal on protected federal land. We have reason to believe several mature oak trees were cut down without a permit. I pointed toward the stumps. Yeah, that's them. What's left, anyway? Whitaker followed my gaze and crouched beside one of the stumps. He ran his hand over the rings like he was inspecting a body. These were old, he said softly. 80 years, maybe more. He looked up at me. You said you didn't cut them? Not me, I said quickly. It was the HOA president, Karen Delaney. She said the trees were community hazards. I told her she had no right to touch them, but she didn't care. He lifted a hand, stopping me. Karen Delaney, he repeated. Did she have written authorization to enter your property? No, I said, shaking my head. I have every letter, every email, all her notices, but no permits, no reports, nothing official. She just showed up with a landscaper and did it. He wrote her name down in a small notebook, eyes never leaving mine. That's going to be a problem, he said quietly. Those trees were covered under the Federal Boundary Act. She crossed into protected land. Relief hit me like a wave. After months of Karen's harassment, citations about grass height, mailbox color, parking too close to the curb, it felt good knowing she finally messed with the wrong person. Whitaker handed me a business card. We'll need a signed statement from you, along with all HOA communications. Do not discuss this with anyone for now. Understood, I said, though I knew in this neighborhood gossip spread faster than wildfire. By lunchtime, word had already made it around the block. I spotted Karen's pink SUV 2 houses down, and sure enough, there she was inside, phone pressed to her ear, pacing like a trapped cat. That evening, another government vehicle showed up, 2 agents this time, plus a county officer. They walked straight up to Karen's door. I stood across the street, pretending to water my lawn, but I watched every second. Karen answered in her pastel pink suit, smiling like she was about to hand out cookies at a bake sale. The agent started talking, their tone calm but firm. Karen's smile faded, her arms crossed. Then her mouth started moving fast, her voice rising. And then, that look. that one sharp moment when she realized she was in real trouble. When she spotted me standing there, she glared so hard I thought her eyes might burst into flames. 15 minutes later, she came storming down the sidewalk, heels clacking like gunfire. "You!" she snapped. "You think you can humiliate me in front of the neighborhood?" I crossed my arms. "Karen, you did that all by yourself. You had no right to bring outsiders into this. You made me look like a criminal." I raised an eyebrow. "Karen, you cut down trees on federal land. You are a criminal." Her face twisted in disbelief. "They were unsightly. They lowered property values." I shook my head. "Those trees were protected by the government, Karen. They weren't even fully on my property. You didn't just break HOA rules, you broke federal law." She froze for a moment, like the words had to travel a long distance before they hit her. "Federal law?" "Yeah," I said. "That line behind my fence? It's not mine. Those trees fell under federal jurisdiction." Before she could answer, Whitaker stepped forward, his tone cool and professional. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step back. You'll have a chance to explain this downtown." Karen's voice cracked. "Downtown? Are you arresting me?" Whitaker didn't respond directly. He just handed her a paper. "You're being called in for questioning under Section 47 of the Federal Conservation Act. It's not optional." For a second, Karen looked like she wanted to argue, but the sight of two agents standing behind him killed that thought fast. Her pink blazer suddenly looked less powerful, her voice less confident. By then, the whole street had gathered. Small clusters of neighbors pretending to check their mail, watch their sprinklers, walk their dogs. Everyone pretending not to stare, but watching every second as Karen, the woman who had ruled over this place like a queen, stood on her front porch being questioned by federal officers. It was poetic. And for the first time since I moved into that neighborhood, I felt peace. No warning letters taped to my door. No friendly reminders about trash bins. No Karen. Just the quiet sound of wind moving through the open space where my trees once stood. Before leaving, Whitaker came back over to me. "We'll take it from here, Mr. Brooks. You might be called in as a witness. Keep all your paperwork safe." I nodded, finally letting out the breath I had been holding for months. "You got it, Agent." As they drove away, the last rays of sunlight hit the stumps in my yard, and for the first time, those empty spaces did not feel like loss. They felt like justice. I nodded. "Thanks, Agent. For what it's worth, those trees meant a lot to me." He glanced back at the stumps. "They still mean something. Their removal just showed you what kind of people you've been living under." When his SUV pulled away, I saw Karen standing by her window that night, phone in hand, staring at my yard. Only this time, she didn't look mad. She looked scared. Because now it wasn't an HOA issue anymore. It was a federal one. For a while, things went quiet. Too quiet. Karen's pink SUV didn't move. The HOA group chat was dead. And for the first time in months, no one slipped a violation notice under my door. It actually felt peaceful. But peace in this neighborhood never lasts long. On the 14th day after the investigation started, a letter showed up in my mailbox. It had the Department of Environmental Protection's logo on it. Inside was the final report. It said, in plain black ink, that unauthorized deforestation of federally protected land had happened on parcel 4B right behind my property. And the name listed under primary responsible party was Karen Delaney. There was also a fine amount, 6 figures, plus an order for full restoration, meaning the HOA had to pay to replant every single tree she tore down. I stepped outside, wind brushing through the empty space where those trees once stood. That's when I saw Karen walking up the street. Her shoulders were slumped, no pink suit this time, just jeans, a gray hoodie, and regret all over her face. She stopped at the edge of my yard. "Congratulations," she muttered, voice shaky. "You got what you wanted." I sighed. "Karen, I didn't want this. I just wanted you to stop harassing people." Her jaw tightened. "You ruined my career. I was next in line for regional HOA council. I shook my head. You did that to yourself. You crossed a federal boundary. Now you're facing the consequences. She turned to walk away, then stopped. They said I might face charges, if they find intent. I stayed quiet. There wasn't anything left to say. She already knew what she'd done. As she disappeared around the corner, I noticed some neighbors watching, the same ones who used to follow her every command. Now they were whispering about how the HOA might actually get dissolved. And honestly, that felt like the end of an era. By the end of the month, new signs popped up near the lake. Protected restoration area, federal property, do not enter. Contractors showed up with soil trucks and saplings, rebuilding what Karen had destroyed. The neighborhood had to pitch in to cover part of the cost, and that hit everyone hard. It made people realize how dangerous blind loyalty to an HOA could be. As for me, I planted one small oak tree in my front yard. Just one. A reminder that peace should be protected, not controlled. Later, I found out why that land was federally protected in the first place. Turns out it was part of an old watershed preservation zone from the 1960s. Karen had literally cut into federal history with her chainsaw. The last time I saw her, she was leaving the HOA office carrying a box of her things. No more power, no pink suit, just another neighbor walking away, stripped of the authority she once abused. And in that silence, I realized something. Karma doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it whispers, through the sound of new leaves growing where arrogance once stood. If you've ever dealt with a Karen or an HOA that went too far, remember this. Truth has roots, and sooner or later it grows back stronger than ever. If you like this story, hit that like button so more people can hear it, and subscribe for more real HOA drama where justice finds its way home. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, lawful, and unstoppable.